di na namin maririnig. Mga batang alaala na maagang lumisan sa dilim. Munting kamay, munting tawa, naiwan sa aming puso sa bawat luha ng magulang. May dasal na di nauubos, Panginoon, dinggin mo kami sa katahimikan ng gabi. Buhatin mo ang mga sugat ng pamilyang sugatan pa rin. Pahinga na mga bata, sa piling mo ligtas na. Pahinga na mga bata, sa walang hanggan mong dila. Mga pangalan iyong mahal, dala namin sa dasal. Pahinga na mga bata, hindi kayo mawawala. Sa bawat tupo ang bakante, may kwentong di natapos. Sa bawat larawang hawak, may pangalang di nalulugod. Komunidad, magkapit-bisig sa gitna ng pagdadalamhati. Itayo nating muli ang pag-ibig na nawasak din, Panginoon. Dinggin mo kami sa katahimikan ng gabi. Buhanatin mo ang mga sugat ng pamilyang sugatan pa rin. Pahinga na mga bata, sa piling mo ligtas na. Pahinga na mga bata, sa walang hanggan mong dila. Mga pangalan iyong mahal, dala namin sa dasal. Pahinga na mga bata, hindi kayo mawawala. Kung may bitak ang aming mundo, ikaw ang hahawak sa gitna. Kung may luha sa bawat tahanan, ikaw ang aaliw sa lahat. At sa araw ng pagbangon, iyong ilaw ang tatalaw. Hanggang sa muling magkita sa dulo ng awa mo, Ama. Pahinga na mga bata, sa piling mo ligtas na. Pahinga na mga bata, sa walang hanggan mong dila. Mga pangalan iyong mahal, dala namin sa dasal. Pahinga
All right. Sorry about the echo. All right, guys. Yeah, this is normally content I usually don't cover, but I saw this story and it actually moved me. We're used to it here in the United States, but after watching the video, and I'm going to do a reaction video. I watched an Asian guy make a YouTube video a couple hours ago. So hopefully I don't get copyright infringement, but I wanted to share the video with you guys and kind of maybe get some of your all's input. It's a very tragic story, and yeah, just let me step into it. Before I start, I just kind of feel led. I would like to say a little prayer for, I don't know if I'm even saying it right, to the families of the Tacloban school shooting that happened on June 22nd of 2026 at approximately 9:13 a.m. The school shooting occurred in San Jose National High School in Tacloban, Philippines. 3 students were killed and 20 others were injured. 2 suspects, aged 14 and 15, were arrested in connection with the shooting. One was apprehended at the scene, while the other was captured following a manhunt. The incident was widely described as an extremely rare case of a school shooting within the country. Within the Ateneo de Manila University shooting in 2022, often being cited as the last recorded case. However, the Ateneo de Manila University shooting was targeted political killing, with non-student victims. There was 3 younger people that, like I said, were tragically taken, and my condolences go out to the family. And yeah, let's get into the story. So I'm going to do a little screen share for you guys, so you guys can read along, and we'll get into this little case here. So let me see if I can share my screen, do the entire screen. And let's pick this one. Okay, let's see. All right, so hopefully you guys can see the screen. This is what I'm reading off of. This is the Wikipedia article. I found some other articles that go along with this, so this will give you guys a couple of headlines. We'll get back to the Wikipedia. This is South China Morning Post. If anybody got to see this, Philippines start active school shooter drills after a deadly attack in Tacloban. And again, I apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly. In Tacloban City, June's fatal shooting at a school in the Visayas region shocked the nation, where mass violence in educational settings is very rare. Hey, Mater, what's going on? And I thank you guys for, like I said, stopping in. For my American friends, I know we're used to kind of hearing stories like this, but in the Philippines, this is very rare. And the video I want to show you guys will be this right here. It's a guy named Asian Boss. It was posted about 2 hours ago. But why the Philippines has so many guns but almost no mass shootings? That's what captured my eye when I first saw this story. But I didn't know about this shooting that happened. So he's going to get into some details about this. And I just thought my American friends might actually find this story very interesting. I was very unaware about how many weapons are, and again, I'm pro Second Amendment, but I was very surprised to know how many weapons and why these weapons are in the Philippines like this. But let's go through some of the articles. As you see here, the Philippines has begun holding active school shooter drills after a rare act of violence in Tacloban City last month, during which 2 teenager students opened fire, killing 3 schoolmates and injuring. Oh, am I gonna have to pay for this? All right, sorry. I picked an article I got to pay for. So let's go to this one. BBC. So if you guys know, this is the UK paper. Philippine ban. Oh, this is another interesting part of this story. The Philippines bans this video game played by alleged high school shooter. Now, I know in America we've tried some of this stuff before, but as a cybersecurity professional, I have actually heard of this group. And they are So this is also a video to hopefully maybe educate parents as well of certain activities to monitor possibly what your kids might be doing and who they could be speaking to online. Because this group is very notoriously known. Let's see, they should talk about it. The Philippines has temporarily blocked gaming app called Gorebox after an initial investigation found that a teenage suspect in a rare school shooting had been playing the game. 3 students were killed and 20 others wounded after 2 suspects aged 15 and 14. And I honestly didn't know the laws in the Philippines about the children's ages. In the United States, it's sad, but we've had to lower our age to prosecute children as adults when they do heinous crimes like this. In the Philippines, their laws are a little bit different, and this guy talks about it in the video, so we'll get to that. But police said that the 14-year-old was a player of Gorebox, and again, I was unaware of this game, where players can obliterate anything they desire and engage in brutal combat with an extensive arsenal of weapons and explosives according to its Google Play listing. And again, I'm not an advocate of censoring and banning video games and all that. I'm not going to say, to me, I feel it's the parents' responsibility. I just feel like you leave that to the parents. I'm not for bigger government stepping in and trying to tell people what they can and can't do when it regards their own children. I believe what you do in your home and the way you raise your kids, your business, but this is evidently Filipino law, what they decided to do. So, police said that the 14-year-old was a player of Gorebox, a game where players obliterate anything they desire. So I'm assuming it might be like Grand Theft Auto or something like that. And engage in brutal combat with extensive arsenal of weapons and explosives, according to its Google Play listing. We cannot ignore possible online influences that may have contributed to the tragic incident, the country's cybersecurity agencies say. Temporary blocking the game will allow authorities to conduct a thorough assessment into whether the platform played any role in the actions of the suspects, said Aboy Patercio, an Undersecretary in the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center. BBC News has contacted Gorebox maker Germany's F2 Games for comment. Scientific studies have not found a direct link between video games and violent behavior. And we've had many stories like this in the United States too. I'm not going to say there's a correlation, but I was kind of taught, garbage in, garbage out. I'm not going to say that it makes kids do this, but I'm going to say I do believe it can, especially at a younger mind, can be influenced. So that's what I'll say on that part. And what do we see here? The kids' parents, police, security. Yeah, see, that's interesting, Cowboy, that you mentioned this. These security officers, that this video talks about this. I was very unaware of the politics and these security teams, and it's completely different than the way we have things here in the United States. Hey, Freedom Redbird. So it's very odd. It's just, as an outsider looking in, I'm not trying to tell the Philippines how they should run their country and their government. It just took me back to where just the way certain policies are put in place, I don't see how this is for the betterment of the Filipino people. But again, I'm not Filipino. I'm not here to tell you how to run your country. I'm just trying to bring awareness to where my hope and goal out of this whole thing, one, is to bring awareness. And in the Philippines, I'm not saying we're used to this in the United States, but it's become very commonplace. In the Philippines, I don't want what I see here in America to end up becoming commonplace in the Philippines. One, I don't think your government's prepared for that. Number two, just the culture and the environment that these kids live in. And again, the man speaks about this in the video. Your culture is a lot more family based, and there was this, will just say, a collapse of certain firewalls that was put in place, and you can see the breakdown on how this happened. Because after looking into this story, the juveniles evidently didn't get to explain their reasoning, because they were taken alive, why they did this. So usually here in America, we usually take out these people, right, unalive them, and we don't ever really get to hear the story on what persuaded or made them want to do something like this. So I find that interesting, that I would like to know, but the Philippine government has different policies on the way they can talk with minors and juveniles and all. So, see, because mass shootings are rare in the Philippines, though gun-related crimes are not uncommon. And in this video, that was another thing I was interested about on... I don't want to get ahead of myself, and I really want to show the video. But when we get to the video, I want you to know, per capita, Thailand and the Philippines actually has more weapons compared to the United States per capita. And I was like, why? We have 350 million people in the United States. So when they're doing, it's kind of like you don't want to mix apples with oranges. But when you look at it, I was honestly surprised that the murder rate wasn't as high as the United States. But he explains why it's not. And again, we're going to learn a little bit of history too, which I really didn't know all this history about the Philippines and the United States. And then it goes back to Spain, if you understand the colonization and all that. It's not a super long video, but we'll watch it. So see, we see that's not uncommon, and most sensational cases are staples of early evening newscasts. What was unusual this time around was the suspects were minors. And I'm trying not to say these children's names. I'm not sure what the laws in the Philippines are, but I know in the United States we try to not put out minors' names. And I don't want to do anything that's disrespectful to the Philippines or their government. As well, in America, I have free speech, but it's a sensitive topic. And I'm trying to be, I'm using a discerning spirit, we'll just say. The worst mass shooting in recent Philippines history happened in November of 2009 when a town mayor in the southern province of Maguindanao shot dead, 58 people, mostly journalists. And he mentions this in the video. That's why I wanted to do a little research to see. Just when I watch a video, I don't know if you guys do this, but I like to fact check, right? To make sure I'm not being gaslit. Maybe they're giving me some type of propaganda. But it does seem like this man, everybody has a bias, but he talks about these points. But it says, yeah, 58 people dead, mostly journalists who were traveling with the convoy of a political rival. And what I found out through just reading some of these articles, most of the shootings, right, pew-pews, actually happen out of, it's political. Those are usually the types of, what is say, unaliving that happens in the Philippines. It's usually over political. So, actually, here's another little story. Okay, let's do this one, because I want to get to the video so you guys can see this. Why is this not responding? Okay, here we go. And so I don't want to get too, I don't want it to be anything graphic. So, Philippine school shooting shines light on global online extremist network targeting children. And I think in this article they mentioned this certain group. Yes, this is them right here. There's documentaries online and on YouTube you guys can check out. If you guys like Sean Ryan, there's a famous cybersecurity guy that actually, hey, Diana, that actually investigated this group. And again, if you have children and stuff, definitely be very aware of this group. It started out with a boy in Texas, and it is kind of like a cult. And what they do is they exploit these children, they harass them, and then they put them in compromising positions, and then they try to extort them. And this, possibly, I'm not saying this is what happened 100% in this case, But it does lead a little this way, because right here, see, investigators believe the attack may be the Philippines' first completed mass shooting linked to 764. If you guys are unaware, definitely look them up online. I could make a separate video on this, but there's tons of information about this group, and I would just tell people, especially if you have children, be very aware. This group is notoriously known on Discord. I'm not saying Discord's a bad platform. I'm on Discord. I know other people on Discord. There's good groups, bad groups. This group, if your kid's involved in any way, definitely remove them from this group. Because linked to 764, a faction within a global decentralized online threat ecosystem known as the COM, or the community. If you guys don't know too, in the United States, we have declared 764 is a terrorist group. The online extremist network includes subgroups as No Lives Matter and the True Crime Community, and the 764 has been designated a national security threat by U.S. federal authorities. 2 student suspects aged 14 and 15 carried out June 22nd attack at San Jose National High School, killing 3 students and wounding 20 others. The 14-year-old was identified to have fired the fatal shots. He had allegedly been playing the violent sandbox game Gorebox, which we referred to earlier, and had posted gun shooting content online shortly before the attack. A sandbox game is a genre where players can freely explore, build, or destroy virtual worlds with few rules or set objectives. The case has already ignited a debate over whether the Philippines should lower its minimum age of criminal responsibility, currently set at 15 under the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act. Senator Risa Hontiveros, who chairs the Senate Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality, said there were indications both suspects had been radicalized by 764 through the Facebook account of a user with the name Siddiqui Raizanav, who is suspected to be the adult groomer behind the attack. It's a very dark group, we'll just say. So again, if you see anything, definitely check your kids' devices, the main things about this. Just thinking of all the mass unveilings that we don't hear about. No, agreed, Mater. I totally agree with you, man. This stuff is happening all around the world. And I happen to hang around in the Filipino communities, so I like to keep up on their news. Like, if y'all don't know too, Japan, it hit our national news, but Japan had an earthquake. What was it, at the beginning of the week? A mall came down. A lot of people were killed. I'm trying not to say certain buzzwords on YouTube. I'm a small channel, but I know YouTube don't like certain words that we say. But we're all adults. We all know what these words are, right? And this is heartbreaking. At the hearing, Hontiveros displayed screenshots showing the account had posted comments on a profile allegedly belonging to one of the suspects after the shooting, instructing the teen to delete his Discord, Reddit, and Telegram. I'm very aware of these different groups too. Reddit is a blog forum. Again, anything goes. It's like the Wild Wild West. Telegram, I don't know if you guys use it, but if you guys watch any, we'll just say, like predator poachers or anybody that goes after, we'll just say, PDFs, the people that like little kids, we'll just say Telegram is where a lot of CP, child bad stuff, pictures and images are shared on. So Telegram, even though people think, oh, well, it's safe, right? It's secure and it's encrypted. There was actually a breach in Telegram and many accounts were leaked and personal information. So no, it's not that secure. And also, I'm for people being able to say whatever you want online, and I understand there's platforms that can secure you, but it can also be used in a bad way. And I can tell you, Telegram, there is a lot of exploitation on there. There's a lot of scamming on there. Same that goes with like WhatsApp. You got Telegram. You've got, there's so many of these chat apps that people use. A lot of this behavior goes on there. So again, my children are grown, but I'm trying to inform people who have younger children, right? It's your children, you can let them do whatever, but you need to monitor their activities online. Because in this situation, as we're going to hear the man explain, this is why this is very rare in the Philippines, because they are a very tight group of people and they're usually in tight quarters. They always have family around. So how nobody noticed that this boy was being indoctrinated and why he felt isolated to reach out to these groups. Oh, no problem, Cowboy. Thank you, man. I'm off work, so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I thought I could at least reach out to my Filipino friends that are usually up to it this time. But yeah, accounts to destroy evidence. Now, why would this guy want to destroy evidence? Because there was extortion and other stuff that was going on. So on that note, you guys should be able to hear this. I did click. Let me double check. I just want to make sure. I'm going to bring back the screen. I just want to make sure I got the audio click so you guys can hear the background. So share my screen again. Okay, tab audio, so you guys should be able to hear this. Entire screen, here, here. Also share the system audio. Okay. Hopefully I'm not going to get an echo, so let me come back over here into my settings. And okay, I took it out of stereo. So hopefully we don't get an echo back on this. So this is the video. It's about 45 minutes long. I'm going to let it play through, but I'm going to stop and then I'm going to interject because, again, I don't want to get any copyright strikes. And if you guys can see, this is for educational purposes. And again, I'm not trying to do any copyright infringement. As you see right here, it's already had 22,914 views 3 hours ago. All credit to this video goes out to Asian Boss. So if you guys see him, definitely check out. He's got some really cool videos if you actually get a look at his community. And they've got, you can go to, that's Ground News. He's doing a sponsorship. And this is what he says. Did you know about the Philippines as one of the most visibly armed countries in Asia? I did not. Walk around Manila and you'll see private security guards with guns everywhere. And I was thinking, oh, okay, yeah, Manila, I can kind of see that. But I didn't understand exactly how the police departments and these private security guards, how they all actually are being paid. I thought it was maybe by the government, but that system is not at all set up how it is here in the United States. Again, Filipinos might be aware of this, but if I got any American friends or whatever, maybe not all the Filipinos even understand how this system is set up. It seems like it's a little bit of a conflict of interest. Because if you see outside malls, banks, hotels, offices, and even schools. But despite all of this, the Philippines has almost never experienced the kind of mass shootings that feel routine in the United States until the recent school shooting in Tacloban. Asian Boss explores the nature of gun violence in the Philippines, why it looks so different from America's, and how the country's mass private security industry became part of everyday life. This is what I found. Private security industry became part of everyday life. In America, this would scare me immediately. Because here, our police department to serve and protect, right? Now, I understand people can question it and say, who are they protecting, right? And some people say, is it businesses or industry? In the Philippines, this is exactly what this is about. And I was like, and then when you find out how much the police officers get paid, I was like, wow, this is eye-opening to me. So let's start the video and you guys can see. But yeah, definitely, if you can, show some love and support and visit Asian Boss. So let's start the video. Let's see, I think I can go full screen here. Come on. Full screen, please. All right. Here we go. Hopefully you guys can hear this.
What if I told you there's a multi-billion-dollar industry in the Philippines that's hiding in plain sight? And when I say plain sight, I mean it's completely out in the open, like everywhere. And every shopping mall entrance, outside the bank, in your hotel lobby. But here's the thing, no local would even notice it. Of course, I'm talking about
guns. Lots of guns.
And if you're visiting the Philippines for the first time and you're not from, say, America.
And just before I keep continuing, can you guys put a 1 in the chat if you can hear the audio? I just want to make sure you can hear him speaking. Actually, I guess I could play it back on my phone too, huh? Just to see. Let's see. I'm just going to listen on my phone too. I just want to see if I'm hearing the audio.
It can be a pretty awkward experience at first because you don't know how you're supposed to react when you walk past a Filipino guard in uniform.
Okay, I can hear it. All right. So I didn't want to get too far in the video and then nobody can hear. So let's start from the beginning here. All right, here we go.
Completely out in the open, like everywhere. And every shopping mall entrance, outside the bank, in your hotel lobby. But here's the thing, no local would even notice it. Of course, I'm talking about
guns. Lots of guns.
And if you're visiting the Philippines for the first time and you're not from, say, America, it can be a pretty awkward experience at first because you don't know how you're supposed to react when you walk past a Filipino guard in uniform literally holding a shotgun. Meanwhile, a local mom and her little girl stroll past the same guy without so much as a glance, chatting away about their day. Pretty interesting contrast. And if you happen to walk by an armored car making a cash delivery, you'll see guards with rifles because Philippine law allows security agencies to carry high-powered firearms when they're escorting money or valuable assets.
And just for transparency, I was just curious. If I was to visit the Philippines, I was like, as an American, right? Or an expat, whatever they call us, I wanted to know, are we allowed to purchase any firearms? That's a negatory. We're not allowed to purchase any weapons. There's a workaround you could do. That you could do it, but I wouldn't feel safe by doing that at all or getting somebody else involved. And then number two, if you wanted to become a citizen to the Philippines, then yes, you could. But there's a lot of red tape and government bureaucracy that you have to go through for any of my American friends that think if you wanted to visit the Philippines and own a weapon. I'm not saying that you can't. There are ways around it, but we're going to say it's not always on the up and the up. And then we're going to also find out legal and illegal weapons in the in the Philippines.
Like you're surrounded by armed private security everywhere. Then it dawns on you, the Philippines is one of the least gun-restricted countries in Asia. There are roughly 4 million guns in circulation, with a huge chunk of those guns being illegal, as in unregistered, stolen, or otherwise unaccounted for. Right?
Did you guys hear that? 4 million guns. And I was like, and we're going to get into the history. Yeah, where did these guns come from? And again, I'm pro Second Amendment. I believe you have a right to protect your family, your property, and all that. I'm not for big government sitting here protecting anybody. So I'm all for gun rights. But this kind of, especially in Asia and the Philippines, out of all countries.
Now, Philippine civilians outcome their own government by about 7-1. Let's not even compare that to the United States, okay, where there are somewhere around 393 million guns, based on the most widely cited estimate. There are literally more guns than people in the United States, roughly 120 guns for every 100 Americans. No other nation on earth is even close. But here's a fun fact. On a per capita basis, Thailand actually has more guns than the Philippines. Way more. Thailand sits at around 15 firearms for every 100 people. That's surprising, right? Because if you've ever been to Bangkok, guns are like the last thing you would expect to see in public. In Thailand, the guns are mostly locked in drawers and safes at home. Nobody carries them around. So you'll be forgiven for thinking that, at least from the optics, the Philippines is the most publicly armed country in Asia, because it probably is. Turns out a big reason for this is a growing private security industry that employs somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000 security guards. And they're legally allowed to carry those guns in public as long as they're in uniform and on duty. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because in June 2026 in Tacloban, a city on the island of Leyte in the central Philippines, 2 teenagers walked into their high school with guns and shot 3 of their classmates dead and injured at least 20 people.
Now, since we're talking about this story, we're going to actually hear, how did these children get access to these weapons?
Shooters were 14 and 15 years old. It was one of the first mass school shootings of its kind in the country's modern history. Yes, the Philippines does have one of the highest firearm homicide rates in Southeast Asia. But this kind of random, indiscriminate school shooting there is so rare that the news stopped the entire nation cold. The president ordered every school in the country to tighten security. The Senate opened an investigation. So what I want us to explore together is this. How does a country with this many guns almost never produce the kind of mass shooting that almost feels routine in the US? What role has the private security industry played in that, if any? And after what happened in Tacloban, is that line starting to break? Before we get into it, the Philippines is exactly the kind of topic where local context gets lost. Most of what reaches Western audiences comes secondhand, and the Filipino press actually covering this story never makes it into your feed. That's why we partnered with Ground News, which solves a problem I've been personally wanting to address for years.
Okay, this is an ad placement that he's going to do. Ground News is actually a good reference. So if you guys, I'll play through it, but Ground News is a great way to find unbiased news information, and he'll show you how. But again, this is an ad placement for him. I'm not sponsored by Ground News.
Ground News is not a news outlet. It's a news comparison app and website that gives me transparency when I'm sifting through data and reports on each topic we cover on our channel. It lets you access worldwide sources your algorithm probably isn't surfacing. For example, search Philippines mass shooting on Ground News and you'll see coverage around the latest school shooting in the Philippines that rocked the nation. You get multiple headlines, a summary, and the source breakdown. In this case, I was surprised to find that many outlets covering the story leaned noticeably left because they were the ones calling for tightening school security. Given the political nature of the story, you can also see factuality ratings and ownership details for each source so you know how reliable the coverage is. There's also the blind spot feed, showing stories ignored by either side of the political spectrum. This is the kind of tool I wished more people used before forming opinions. So if you're someone who wants to stay informed without being manipulated by algorithms, subscribe to Ground News and get 40% off the Vantage plan by scanning the QR code, going to ground.news/boss, or clicking the link in the description below. All right, let's get back to the deep dive.
Yes, here we go.
So right off the bat, before we even get to gun violence and mass shootings, we first need to understand where all these guns in the Philippines came from. What I was personally...
Exactly. That's my question. I was like, where did all these guns come from? And now we're going to get a little history dive. So if any guys are history buffs like me, you might find this actually pretty eye-awakening. I was thinking, yeah, possibly the United States. We did have a little part to play, but we're going to hear originally where it originated from. And I have to say, hats off to the Filipinos because, yeah, you deserved your independence and you fought for it.
Curious about was, when did guns first start entering the hands of ordinary Filipinos in significant numbers? From what we found, the answer is 1896. Up until then, the Philippines had been a Spanish colony for 333 years. And if you're an ordinary Filipino, you could see guns around you, but probably could not get your hands on those guns belonged only.
No, see, Mater, I agree. I never would have thought either. And they really don't have a they have an issue with this, but not like here in the United States. And he's going to touch on this. Like, yeah, I think you're going to find this very eye-awakening. It's very interesting.
to Spanish officials, Spanish soldiers, and a small number of wealthy Filipinos the colonial government happened to trust.
Wealthy
Which
Filipinos.
makes sense.
Much.
If you're running a colony, why would you arm the people you're colonizing, right? But in August of 1896, Filipinos finally rose up against Spain. It started with a secret society named the Katipunan, which roughly translates to the Supreme and Venerable Association of the Sons of the People. It was mostly made up of farmers and clerks, regular Filipinos. And when Spanish authorities...
And I'm just curious too, if I have any Filipinos in chat, were you all taught this in school? See, in America, we learn our American history. Then we learn, like the War of 1812, the Spanish-American War, anything that we're involved in, World War II against the Japanese. This type of information, though, I've never learned or heard about any of this, these secret societies or any of this. So if I got any Filipino people out there that can confirm or even maybe leave a comment, if you get to watch the replay, let us know. Because again, most Americans are probably like myself. I find this intriguing and I like history. So I like to learn about your culture.
Found out this secret society existed, they came for its members. That's when the Filipinos decided to go to war. Except they went to war with farm tools, bamboo spears, bolo knives, which are heavy machete-style blades used to cut sugarcane and clear brush. Meanwhile, Spanish soldiers were armed with Mauser and Remington rifles. So Filipinos literally brought knives to a gunfight, which was not a fair fight at all. So they fought the only way they could. They took guns off the bodies of Spanish soldiers they had managed to kill. And some Filipinos serving inside the Spanish colonial army defected and walked out with their rifles. The rebels started arming themselves, and what began as a secret society turned into something closer to a real fighting force.
Yes.
Historians call it the Philippine Revolutionary Army. They were winning battles here and there, but it still wasn't enough to challenge the entire Spanish colonial army, who gradually had them cornered into the mountains by the end of 1897. But here, the Spanish made a fatal mistake. They tried to buy the entire revolution off. In December of 1897, they offered...
Listen to this. This guy right here, very smart. He outwitted the Spaniards on this one. They're going to try to buy him off, right? Say, oh yeah, we'll give you all this money and stuff. Just side with us and stuff. Watch what he does. Gangster move right here.
For the rebels, 800,000 Mexican silver dollars, which was the currency of trade across Asia back then. That's roughly $15 million in today's money. And the deal was structured like a gun buyback almost. Their leader, a young general named Emilio Aguinaldo, would get the first $400,000 if he and his top officers left the country. Then the rest of the payments would follow once the revolutionaries had surrendered their weapons. Those were the conditions. So you know what Aguinaldo did? He said, fine, you pay me and I'll leave the country.
I'll probably do another singing live, probably this weekend. Like I said, I'm kind of doing that. And I also got I got some tech stuff that's coming too. I got some labs and stuff we're going to be able to set up. So my content's going to be kind of going in different places. So hopefully I'll find something. I'm trying to find a good core audience. So hopefully you guys will stick with me. And I got some other channels I'm working on. So this is kind of a test trial where I'm trying to do talkies, a little bit of history, a little bit of theology. I'm going to do some tech stuff. So it's going to be a little hodgepodge until I can kind of find out different audiences so I can break my channels off. But karaoke will still be around.
He took the first installment of 400,000 Mexican silver dollars, roughly $7.5 million today, sailed to Hong Kong, deposited it in a bank there, and used it to buy more guns and ammunition to come back and keep fighting. And when that shipment finally reached the Philippines, it carried exactly 1999 rifles and 200,000 rounds of ammunition. Those numbers are from an official Philippine government source. So in effect, Filipinos armed themselves with Spain's own money. And that's how guns really entered ordinary Filipino hands for the first time, through a war. To be clear, the Philippine Revolutionary Army did not defeat the Spanish. The Americans did. In 1989, the Americans...
Okay, now for my American friends, we're going to think, hey, yeah, we come and did this. But the way this kind of played out, this isn't the way I was taught in my history books about World War II. So, yeah, I just want you to get, yeah, for my American friends, listen to this very closely. You might be a little surprised, or maybe not. Our government likes to do things that we look back on and go, yeah, I don't think that was possibly the best.
Navy destroyed the Spanish fleet in Manila Bay. And just like that, 333 years of Spanish rule were over. And the Americans didn't show up by accident. Before the battle, U.S. officials had already been in contact with the Revolutionary Army's leader, Aguinaldo, who was still in exile in Hong Kong. After the Spanish fleet went down, an American warship carried him home. The U.S. admiral welcomed him aboard his flagship with full military honors. So Filipinos thought they had won. They thought they were finally free. In June 1898, they even declared their own independence. And for a few months, it genuinely looked like they had. Except they were still not free. That December, Spain and the United States sat down in Paris and signed a treaty. Spain handed over the Philippines, and America paid $20 million for it. Not a single Filipino was at the table. So the Filipinos turned around and fought the Americans instead. That war lasted 3 years. Over 4,000 Americans died. More than 20,000 Filipino fighters died. And as many as 200,000 Filipino civilians died from violence, famine, and disease.
Now, just to be transparent, I never heard all this. So, yes, I want to fact check myself, because this wouldn't surprise me if the United States did do this. And I'm not saying that he's lying, but I would like to also check other references, because I was never taught this. I know a little bit about the war in the Philippines and World War II, but this part, I'm not too sure. But I could see the United States doing something like this. Kind of goes back to Reagan. I'm not trying to be political, but remember Fast and Furious and weapons, and why are we, like, were we trying to do in a coup? Why are we funding these people weapons, right? Because we're giving them, that's American taxpayer dollars that's paying for a country to do. So, yeah, exactly, Redbird. I wouldn't doubt this either. So I'm taking it with a grain of salt, but for transparency, I'm going to say I cannot confirm all this information. But yeah, let's continue.
In the end, the Filipinos lost. And from 1898, the United States would...
Yeah, there's a great book. If you don't know, Mater, I read it. I don't know if you guys read it too. My teacher wrote us. That haven't read us a book from the 1970s. Yeah, we learn a lot about American history, to where it's kind of like what Napoleon said, right? History is nothing but a lie agreed upon. And we usually hear the side of who? The winners. You don't really hear the side of the losers. So I'm just kind of thinking, yeah, it's kind of like, the Venezuela, like current things that's going on even now, we're not being told everything. So again, yeah, I'm taking this with all a grain of salt. I love my country, so I don't want anybody thinking I'm an American basher. I love my country, but I also know we can be political with other countries for our own best interests, and not always for the interest of those people. So
rule the Philippines for the next 48 years until 1946. It's what the Americans did during this period that's worth looking into.
Yeah.
Because when it came to guns, they did the exact opposite of the Spanish. They had just spent 3 years fighting an armed population. The obvious move would have been to confiscate every gun in the country.
Exactly.
Instead, in 1907,
so what they did,
the American colonial government passed Act number 1780. And here's what it did. Anyone who wanted to sell guns could apply to the Governor General.
Yeah, watch. Any person, firm, or corporation desiring to deal in firearms or ammunition shall make application to the Governor General for a license. Sound familiar? Kind of like what we do here in America, right? And then we also have what? The weapon makers, right? And then they make contracts and deals. And I was like, yeah, wait a minute. This definitely sounds like an American policy. So let's continue.
For a dealer's license. If the application was approved, the dealer had to pay a licensing fee and put up a bond. The guns themselves could then be shipped in from overseas through licensed importers, cleared through customs, and personally approved for import by the American Governor General. We couldn't actually verify exactly which overseas markets these guns were coming from.
Exactly.
But the point is, any Filipino who wanted to own one for self-defense, hunting, or any other lawful purpose could apply for a license as well. All you had to do was put down a cash deposit for each gun you bought. Whatever their intentions.
Okay, now let's think about that. Even in America, as long as you got this pay to play, right? As long as you got the cash and you, dude, did you not notice something they're not saying here? There's no background checks. There's no security checks. As long as you got the money, we're going to get, I don't know. Can you guys see something that might be a red flag here? It might cause an issue later on. We're going to speak about that.
The Americans pretty much built a regulated gun market in the Philippines. Licensed dealers at one end, licensed Filipino buyers at the other, and a government office in the middle writing it all down.
Supply and
It's
demand.
important to point out here that this did not give Filipinos some automatic rights like the Second Amendment.
Bingo.
Rather, this was still a privilege granted by the colonial government, and the Governor General could.
Notice the word he said, right? A privilege. In America, we have the Second Amendment, which says what? Shall not be infringed, right? They're rights given to us by our Creator, inalienable rights, even though our government, you know, again, I don't want to get on a rant about my government, but yeah, every single day they're trying to tick away at our Second Amendment and think that they can tell us we can't own certain things. But it seems like same thing they like to do here in the Philippines, because notice, yeah, these people could have weapons and stuff as long as they were moderated by the government. You just had to put your name on a list. Yeah, exactly. Same thing here in Florida. We actually finally did get right to carry, right? And you got people that are practicing. I'm all for it and stuff, but I'm a little bit on the fence on that. I'm kind of believe in more concealed carry because I like, you know, surprise. I think if you're walking around with a weapon, again, you have every right to do it. I just feel like you could bring more attention to yourself. Good attention or bad attention. So, and I know some people feel a little awkward if you see somebody with an AR or something strapped on their back, right? I've been around guns my whole life, so I'm kind of used to it, but I'm a country boy. City folk, I can understand people are going to be, you know, and I'm going to look at somebody a little sideways like, why has that guy got that? All right? You got your family and stuff. But yeah. And private businesses, you know, they can not let you in. Like Disney World, I don't want to see people walking around with AR-15s, right? It'd be a little concerning.
Reject an application or revoke a license at any time. Anyway, by the end of 1915, barely 80 years after the law was passed, the American colonial government had already licensed roughly 7,500 firearms in the Philippines. That was the beginning of what would eventually become one of the least gun-restricted countries in Asia, through a law written by Americans. This is when the legal gun business started taking root too. One gun store that opened in Manila in 1905 eventually became Armscore, which today says it's the world's biggest producer of the 1911 pistol, the handgun most Americans know as the .45. In the US, they sell it under the brand name Rock Island Armory. Sounds American, but it's Filipino, which is ironic because the Americans invented that gun in the first place to shoot Filipinos with. But while all the legal gun market stuff was going on in Manila, do you know what was happening about 350 miles south in a coastal town in Cebu, Cotanao? Illegal gun market. Filipinos there were building their own guns by hand.
Now, is this surprising to you? Yeah, why in the world are you going to sit here and have all this gun trading? You have to do all this. Well, guess what? They got the weapons now. It's not too hard to sit here. Well, I'm not going to say it's not hard. I mean, being a gunsmith, it takes skill and talent, but they can remanufacture these guns, right? Reverse engineer, create these weapons. And for those of us that have been around long enough and stuff, these are ghost guns, right? There's no serial numbers. And we're going to find out an interesting fact that happened in this school shooting about serial numbers. So keep that in the back of your mind.
And from scrap metal and angle iron and whatever they could pull out of a junkyard. It actually started around 1905, right in the middle of the American takeover, when gunsmiths in the hills were supplying Filipino rebels who were still fighting, and they never stopped. At one point, Danao had somewhere around 6,000 illegal gun makers by its own city government's estimate. And whenever Philippine police sees an illegal gun inside the country, the odds are overwhelming that it came out of a backyard like that one. So the Philippines ended up with 2 gun pipelines in the same decade. One legal, properly imported and licensed, expensive, and written down in a ledger in Manila. One illegal, hand-built, cheap, and completely invisible. And both pipelines were quietly putting more and more guns into the country every year. Then World War II blew the whole thing wide open. On December 8th, 1941, 10 hours after Pearl Harbor, Japan invaded the Philippines, which was still an American colony. Why? Because the Philippines sat right in the middle of the Pacific Empire Japan wanted to build.
MacArthur.
And the Americans lost badly. Within months, U.S. and Filipino forces were overrun, and the American commander, General Douglas MacArthur, was ordered to flee to Australia. On his way out, he made a famous promise, "I shall return."
In America, this is the history we know, right? MacArthur says, "I shall return," right? And he does after the war. So this part I've learned, I'm assuming most Americans know this part, but I didn't understand everything leading up and then afterwards with the Philippines.
Japanese would occupy the Philippines for the next 3 years, but they never fully controlled it. Filipinos fought back throughout the occupation from the mountains and jungles with whatever weapons they had. At their peak, these guerrilla fighters, meaning irregular fighters, civilians, and stranded soldiers waging a hit-and-run war, controlled around 60% of the country. And they kept accumulating more guns, including weapons taken from dead Japanese soldiers.
Raw.
Here's the crazy part. The Americans, while in exile, decided to arm the Filipinos. Under MacArthur, a secret U.S. operation ran submarines past the Japanese Navy, delivering rifles, ammunition, radios, and explosives straight to the Filipino guerrillas. All told, they smuggled in roughly 1,325 tons of supplies, which must have included a ship.
Right. When you think of this, I wasn't taught this. 1,325 tons of supplies and equipments were landed and delivered. Now, I understand we're fighting the Japanese here, and I applaud the Filipinos fighting alongside us. However, all these guns after the war, did we bring these weapons back with us? Right? And again, I wasn't alive during this time, but I'm thinking this is a lot of taxpayer money that's going, like, this is not going to end well.
A ton of guns and ammunition. And when General MacArthur returned as promised in late 1944, U.S. forces incorporated many of the roughly 250,000 Filipino guerrillas into their ranks and supplied them with even more weapons as they pushed the Japanese out. Then, just like that, the war ended. And on July 4th, 1946, the U.S. granted the Philippines the independence it had promised and went home. But it left behind the country flooded with loose wartime firearms, many of which remained in circulation after the fighting ended.
That makes sense.
So the Philippine government did the only thing it could. It started registering them without any pre-qualification of applicants at all. No background checks, no screening, nothing. You just walked in with a gun, wrote your name down, and it was yours. And that was only the beginning, because remember, those 2 pipelines that we covered earlier never really shut off.
Now, also, let's think about this. This isn't just civilian weapons. We're talking military rifles, right? So imagine you just sign your name and they're going to say, yeah, you can keep this. What other ammunition? That's insane. I'm like, what the hell were they thinking? But I guess America just wanted the war over, and we thought, hey, thank you, Philippines. And we left all this stuff there. Now, again, did it work out good for the Filipino people? Possibly, but I just see it's not going to end well.
In decades of legal imports, domestic gun manufacturing, and one insurgency after another, communist rebels, Muslim separatist fighters in the South, and criminal gangs, and the number just kept climbing.
Imagine.
So that's how the Philippines went from a country with almost no ordinary person owned a gun to one with roughly 4 million guns in circulation today. And it happened almost by accident.
Yeah.
One colonizer and one war at a time. But the real question is, what happens once all that firepower is out in public?
Exactly.
What kind of gun violence does a country like this actually produce? And when it does, who's there to...
And this is what's interesting. In the United States, see, the way I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is going to end really, really horrible. But in a way it kind of does. But listen how the Philippine government handles this. And again, we're going to go back to like Maduro and I think it's Maduro. They're going to talk about some of the Philippine presidents. And one of these, you guys are, if you're my age, I'm 54, you're probably going to remember one of these names. His son is now running the Philippines.
Protect ordinary people. Because as we're about to find out, for most Filipinos, the answer was never the police.
This is crazy.
Since we've established that the Philippines today has over 4 million guns in circulation, one could reasonably assume that this must translate into a lot of gun deaths, right? Even I personally keep hearing how the Philippines supposedly has one of the highest firearm homicide rates in Southeast Asia, or how easy and cheap it is to hire hitmen there to have somebody killed. So let's actually look at the numbers. According to the Philippine National Police, or PNP, there were 10,936 gun-related incidents between 2022 and early 2024.
And pay close attention to this. This is where, and I've seen this happen in the United States. We throw out these statistics, but they don't break it down and explain everything on, when you talk about homicides, gun-related incidents, like they just throw everything together. So when he starts breaking it down, I did a little bit of research into this, and his numbers, again, we're going by the official, right? Official government statistics. Again, I take it with a grain of salt, but he's got a good argument here. I think a very solid argument, honestly. But again, I'm only going by their official numbers. And just like the United States, I don't trust the numbers that the Philippine government or my own government tells me.
Roughly 5,000 a year. But those aren't all deaths. That's every kind of gun incident out there.
Exactly.
You know, shootings, threats, robberies, the whole range. When it comes to firearm homicides, the latest United Nations data shows that around 2,700 people were shot and killed in the Philippines in 2023. That's roughly 2.3 firearm homicides for every 100,000 people. Is that high?
That's a lot.
Well, it depends on what you're comparing the rate against. By the government's own numbers, gun crime has actually been on a downward trend for years. And you can see that if you look at the rate of homicide by firearm from 2016, which was 7.9 per 100,000 people, more than triple the 2023 rate. And there's a clear explanation why 2016 was so high. That was the year that President Rodrigo Duterte launched his infamous war on drugs.
Yeah. Now, again, as an American, I don't know all the history, but yes, I've heard many stories about Duterte, and he implemented martial law, and then he goes into this war on crime. We've heard this in the United States as well. And yeah, again, not my government. I'm just giving you my opinion and views from an outsider looking in. This is not a good man. What he did, it's kind of like in America when they say, oh yeah, marijuana. I know people that are in prison for low, not a lot of marijuana, and they're serving, 15, 20 years. And you're like, what? And this is kind of what he did. And again, I don't know all the facts on what they were facing in that country, but when you look into the stories with Duterte, a lot of innocent people got rounded up in this. And again, I'm not Filipino. I'm not here to debate with Filipinos. It's your country, but this, to me, it just wasn't right.
Officially, the Philippine police themselves recorded around 6,000 people killed in the process of cleaning up the streets and busting drug gangs. Human rights groups put the real number as high as 30,000 once you count the vigilante-style killings.
That's right.
Admittedly, the numbers get messy here because there were arguments over whether drug suspects killed by police should count as homicides at all. Still, no one can deny that there were a lot of shootings and killings going on, and it was front-loaded. The campaign was at its bloodiest in 2016 and 2017. One likely reason the rate came down so much is that a lot of violence was drug and gang related. This actually hints at something important about the nature of gun violence in
Yes, and as an American, we can relate to this as well. We got Chicago, we got a lot of states has a lot of this drug activity and gangbangers. So again, we got people, we got to ban weapons and stuff, right? But we understand we need weapons to stop us being hurt by bad people who want to do bad things, right?
the Philippines. But let me come back to that because it becomes
slow.
a whole lot clearer the moment you compare the Philippines to the United States.
Right.
You see, at first glance, the Philippines' latest gun homicide rate of 2.3 looks lower than that of the United States, where gun homicide sits at around 4.7 per 100,000. But that might not be the most accurate way to analyze the situation because the US has something like 120 guns for every 100 people. The Philippines has fewer than 4. So America has more than 30 times as many guns per person, but only about double the gun homicide rate.
Exactly. And we got 350 million people compared to the population of the Philippines.
So if you look at it crudely on a per gun,
And again, statistically, I'm not going to tell people what I have, but, I believe in the Second Amendment. So people have weapons, but, I got friends and stuff. Unless you are a very enthusiastic, and again, if that's what you are, I salute you. But yeah, having 120 weapons seems a little overkill. A lot of the people I know don't have 120 weapons sitting around. But most people do have weapons to defend yourself and your family, and I applaud that 100%. So that's why I don't like statistics when they're trying to say if you break it down for every individual, 120 weapons, it depends on the individual. And if you don't understand too, weapons are not that cheap.
gun basis,
And I'm not
a
rich.
gun in the Philippines appears
have
far more
grandpa's
likely to be
old
connected to
rifle,
a
right?
homicide than a gun in the United States.
43
And
hunting
what that
rifle.
tells you is that the nature of gun violence in the Philippines is very different.
Exactly.
It's intentional. It's targeted. There are almost no random accidental shootings, at least according to the data. So who actually gets shot in the Philippines? Overwhelmingly, it's
This is what took me back. I'm sitting there thinking okay, the gang violence, I get all that. But now listen to how most of these shootings happen. This is what was disturbing to me. I guess Filipinos maybe are used to this, but I'm like, this is tyrannical.
someone the shooter meant to kill, a business rival, someone on the other side of a dispute, whether that's over land or drugs, a witness, a journalist, a local politician.
That's
Local elections in particular can be deadly. In the 2025 midterm elections, the country's own election commission confirmed that just under 20 candidates were killed during the
See, do you see these numbers? Fewer than 20 candidates have been killed during a midterm election. We got midterms coming up. Can you imagine if this was going on in the United States? That's why I was like, how is this acceptable? But again, I don't live in the Philippines. I'm just like, this isn't, that's not okay. I definitely would not want to be running for no political office in the Philippines if this is what goes on. Taking out your rival, that's gangster right there.
campaign. And they called it an improvement because in the previous national election, the number was close to 100. The most extreme example is still one of the worst massacres in modern Philippine history. In 2009, in a province called Maguindanao, 58 people were ambushed and killed in a single afternoon. 32 of them were journalists, which to this day makes it the deadliest single attack on the press anywhere in the world. It was a political assassination planned by one powerful clan to stop a rival from running for office. And they didn't hire a couple of gunmen to do it. They used their own private army. So at this point, you could be asking, what the hell is the police doing?
Exactly.
Fair question. In the Philippines, the government has never had a real monopoly on public protection, which we found surprising. How can that be, right? Turns out, under American rule, Filipinos inherited the basic building blocks of democracy like elections, Congress, voting rights. But that was before anyone had built a strong, professional national bureaucracy to go with it. So the people who won those early elections were the families who already had the money and the land, the provincial elites. Political scientists call this cacique democracy. Cacique here meaning local chief or boss. Basically,
if you're very wealthy, it reminds you like the Al Capone days, right? The mob. We're going to protect you, but you're going to pay us to protect you from who? Us. So we don't break your kneecaps. That's called corruption. Now I'm starting to see like, yeah. Now I kind of, it was a young country. In America, we didn't give them enough time to build an actual democracy. I'm saying we got a lot of problems in my country as well. And I'm not, but the thing is, stuff like this is definitely banana republic type stuff. When you're taking out your adversaries and it's just second nature. And then you got these wealthy people who just get in office. It doesn't matter. That's not democracy. Again, an American speaking on another country. And again, I'm not putting down the Philippines. I'm just trying to tell you, you should not have to tolerate and put up with this. This is not okay.
Democracy arrived before the state was ready for it. And from the very democratic founding of the nation, real power sat with a few dozen landowning families who captured the government from within. From the provinces to Metro Manila, a handful of elite families that own the mega malls, the banks, the media, the real estate hold the real power. And they arrange their own security to protect themselves, their people, and their property. So if that's how the most powerful families in the country operate, then everyone else has to do the exact same thing.
Exactly.
The neighborhood pharmacy, a private school, a hospital, a car dealership, a gated community for middle-class families where homeowners pull their dues to pay for a guard at the gate.
Now, for my American friends, where do you see this going? I don't know, if you could have a crystal ball and look into the future, where do you think this is going to go? Everybody's going to have their own private security, and they're only going to care about their property and all that. So what are the police being able to do here? And then when you start looking at these security guards, they outnumber the police. So it's one of these things. It's like an old saying we used to say here, and I've heard it in some music. I don't want to say certain words, but it'll say, to serve, protect, and break a something neck. That's how the saying goes. So again, protect and serve who? The interest of who? A business? A corporation? Yeah, this is getting into mafia type stuff.
And that's exactly what led to the rise of the private security industry in the Philippines. At first, it was chaos because technically you could hire anyone as your private guard and just hand them a gun, as long as you got a permit from the mayor, likely through personal connections. In effect, there was no real line between a security guard and a hired gun or private army gun. You could literally have a criminal with a history of violence walking around armed and in uniform because there was no check required. So in 1969, the government passed a private security agency law after being lobbied by the big security agency operators who wanted legitimacy. It required every guard to be licensed, vetted, and trained, and it put the whole industry under the control of the country's military force. And from that point on, the number of private guards exploded. In the first year, there were about 36,000 licensed guards. Then came Marcos. In 1972, President Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law and turned the Philippines into a dictatorship for the next 14 years. And the private security industry only grew. His government issued decrees pushing guards into mining sites, logging camps, and plantations, all the places where valuable resources needed protecting. By 1984, the number of licensed guards had quadrupled to 145,000 from when the law first passed. From there, the industry just kept spreading. Through the 90s, it followed the malls, the banks, and the gated neighborhoods. Then in the 2000s came the call centers that also needed guards. Add in decades of street crime and a real terrorism threat in the South, and demand never really let up. Today, the Philippines has over 600,000 licensed private security guards. That's
Did you see that? 600,000. And you see, their guidelines and restrictions are very limited. And then when you start hearing how much the police officers get paid, and even these security officers, and then you start looking at their requirements, weight requirements, I can see they think this is going to work. The intimidation by the weapons and stuff. But as you see, it's breaking down already just by what happened at this school. And he's going to touch more upon this.
more private guards out on the street than the Philippines has soldiers and police combined.
That's crazy.
Get this. The Philippines has about 228,000 police officers for a country of 115 million people. That's roughly one cop for every 500 people. And that thin force is spread across more than 7,000 islands.
Yeah.
So the Philippine National Police, or PNP, even has a name for the private guards. They call them force multipliers because across much of the country, these private guards are the closest thing to law enforcement around. In fact, it's the PNP that issues every private security license and supervises every single agency and guard in the country. And remember, for 6 years, the entire PNP...
Now let's think about this. These are private businesses who's doing this. So what are they doing? The government is being able to do what with this? Instead of paying their police officers, they're handing it off to these private security teams. They got this backwards. I'm sitting here thinking like, so they have just as much as authority as the police. And the police don't even have to do their jobs because they got these private security. So who's watching the watchers here? This is corruption, 100% corruption.
force was consumed by a drug war that pulled it away from everyday policing. During the pandemic lockdowns, they even issued formal orders deputizing private guards to help secure establishments. But this isn't really a partnership.
No.
In many ways, it's the private sector subsidizing the police. Filipino businesses are paying for a 500,000 person security network out of their own pockets. And the state gets to use it for free.
For free.
Because think about it. The guards are the PNP's eyes and ears. They watch, they report, they deter.
Gestapo.
It's the government quietly outsourcing its own job. Except here's the limit of that. A security guard doesn't work for the public the way a police officer does. He works for whoever is paying, which is the client who hired the agency that employs him. So don't expect him to come running if you're getting mugged across the street.
Exactly.
His authority doesn't extend beyond the edge of the property he's assigned to protect. And even if he did step in, legally he can only make a citizen's arrest, meaning he can detain someone until the police show up. And that's it. So who are the agencies that employ these guards? There are roughly 1,800 of them registered across the country. And you would think a market this size, over 500,000 guards, would be dominated by a few big players. But surprisingly, it's the opposite. The market is heavily fragmented, and based on our research, there's a reason for that. It's the law. Under the current rules, a single agency cannot employ more than 2,000 guards, which kind of makes sense given the historical context of private armies. It's the government's way of making sure no single company can ever assemble a private force big enough to become a threat itself. Anyway, let's say you want to hire one of these guards. What do you do? According to a 2026 government cost distribution for the Manila area, the monthly cost for just one day shift guard already comes out to around 45,000 pesos, or roughly $770 before the agency adds its own cut. And
So 770 USD before they take their cut. See, that is, wow.
under the current law, the agency's administrative fee cannot be less than 20%. So obviously, agencies can charge more than the 20% minimum to increase their margins.
Yeah.
So how much of that does the guard actually take home?
Nothing.
Minimum wage.
Minimum
In
wage.
2026, that's around 18,000 pesos a month, or roughly 320 US dollars. To put that in perspective, one Filipino think tank.
Yeah, $320 a month USD. Can you? These numbers are just. I can't wrap my mind around this. This is extortion. This is mafia type of tactics. And now when we start looking into the requirements and looking at the shape these guys are in, I get it. Yeah, what are you really going to do? I'm just going to stand there with the gun. I'm not going to really do anything. And then I'm probably going to see if I can get another job as fast as possible. You don't get no benefits. You're not getting anything. Then you're going to also hear, by the time these people come full time, they're going to start cutting these people so they can't get benefits and all that. So this isn't right.
Iban Foundation estimates a family in Manila needs about 1279 pesos a day to get by. That's roughly 33,000 pesos or 590 US dollars per month. So a guard on minimum wage is earning barely half of what it takes to support a family.
How's he going to take care of his family?
Still, this is real full-time employment with overtime, holiday pay, and government health and pension contributions, at least on paper. The problem is that agencies are notorious for getting around it by churning guards from post to post and letting them go right before they would have to be made permanent. They often fail to pay the benefits the guard is legally owed.
Right, this is like a temp agency. So they're going to sit here, work your butt off, take you from post to post, work all this overtime and all that. You ain't going to get paid crap. And then when you finally get eligible for benefits, sorry, got to let you go. See, this, and again, I'm not putting down the Filipino people. I'm just trying to tell you, these are not good business practices. And I'm not saying stuff like this don't happen possibly in America. It definitely does. But if people find out about this, we're going to sue the crap out of you. There's going to be lawsuits and you're going to be held accountable. Not everybody does. There's a lot of corruption. But if this is commonplace in the Philippines, and I get it, people got it. They're in a rock and a hard spot. You need money to feed your family. Some people are going to do this. And it's like a catch-22. It's not right.
So let me ask you,
exactly,
for a job this low paying and thankless,
Filipino people
who do you think actually applies? For a long time, a lot of them were ex-soldiers, men who left the military after the Marco dictatorship and needed work. But today, it's very different. Some are people who studied to become police officers but couldn't make it. Others just need a job. Any job.
Exactly.
And private security is an entry-level job, often a stepping stone they hope to leave as quickly as possible.
And that's the thing. If it's pretty much a minimum wage job and they're just giving this out to pretty much anybody that applies, I don't know. I would not feel safe myself having these people walking around with a freaking firearm. What type of training are they getting? And again, I'm trying. This is where maybe I'm getting things wrong. I'm judging this from an American perspective. Because I know in America, if this was going on, oh my God, I would definitely be carrying my firearm around all the time. Because I don't trust these buffoons that they might end up shooting somebody, shooting himself in the foot. But I guess, like I said, in the Philippines, I guess this is commonplace. And for my Filipino friends, yeah, do you have any opinions on this? And I get it too. It's the Philippines. So I don't know exactly what you all can and cannot say with your government. I don't want people getting in trouble and all that. It's just, yeah, for my American friends, this is just very eye-opening to me. Because I look at the Philippines, I think it's a beautiful country. I think the people are great, but this is the corruption that a lot of us see that happens in these third world countries. And yes, you are being affected by this. And this humanitarian stuff, this is not okay. People should not be paid and treated this way, for one. And again, just out of safety concerns, I would feel safe in the Philippines.
And this is something everyone notices, but nobody says out loud.
Agreed.
So many of these guards look old and out of shape. You see a guy who looks like he's in his 50s with a belly and a shotgun and think, this man couldn't stop a teenager if he tried.
Exactly.
But what do you expect? If the job is a low-paid stepping stone, the young and ambitious use it and move on. The ones who stay year after year are the ones who never found the way out. And here's the thing. To become a guard in the first place, you need a high school diploma, a clean police record, and you have to pass a drug test, a psychological evaluation, and a licensing course. That's it. The law does require guards to be physically and mentally fit, but there is no fitness test. A medical certificate is enough.
How low does the bar have to be? I mean, I see police officers too. You know, some of them are fit, but then there's some that you see like, how in God's name? That guy's probably been in the police force for 20, 25 years, probably on his way out getting ready to retire. I hope so. But yeah, there needs to be fitness requirements and all that. Because you understand? But again, if they're only protecting property, they don't expect anybody to do anything, just think they got a weapon to intimidate people, right? I guess everybody stays in line. I can tell you right now, this would not work in the United States. They would get tested on day one. So again, I'm seeing this maybe through an American lens and not through the Filipino lens. But Filipinos, I'm telling you, this school shooting hopefully is going to wake you guys up to where you're having a breakdown already. So with social media, people that are out there doing this, I hope that you guys can settle and take care of this situation before this is being exposed and people are going to take advantage and exploit this. And I can tell you, if this is the type of law and order you have, this will not end well for the Filipino people.
And under the newer law, the old maximum age language was removed. Basically, nothing really measures whether you could actually contain a situation. Because in the security industry, it's all about deterrence. Any physical body in a uniform with a gun, no matter how out of shape, was supposed to be enough to make most troublemakers think twice. And for decades, that logic held. But in June of 2026, a very different kind of threat broke every assumption this entire system was built on, and it might change the private security industry forever.
Hopefully this is the wake-up call.
Hopefully by now, you have a clearer picture of what gun violence in the Philippines actually looks like. Private guards holding guns are everywhere in public, which is supposed to deter a lot of everyday petty street crime. The firearm homicide rate is fairly low, around 2 per 100,000. And most of it is targeted, aimed at a specific person over a specific dispute, whether that be political, money, or a score to settle. Another way of saying that is the kind of random, indiscriminate mass shooting you see in the United States almost never happens in the Philippines. So what the hell happened on June 22nd, 2026? Around 9 in the morning at San Jose.
The reason I keep pausing is because, one, I don't want to get a copyright, and this I'm trying to use this under fair use, so that's why I keep cutting in. But yeah, I can pretty much tell you already what happened here. We're going to add social media into this. You've got outsiders that are, we'll just say, indoctrinating younger kids. This is why it's very important to watch what your kids are doing. And then if I also had to guess it, I already did see this video. I know they're going to speak upon it, but the first thing that came to my mind when I watched this, Columbine. You understand, even in America, we had a whole bunch of different situations that always kept going back to Columbine. For some reason, younger kids thought, hey, it was cool, so that we could act like and we want to pull off another Columbine, which is horrific. And the thing is, I think younger kids in the Philippines are being influenced by this type of behavior as well. God help you, Philippines.
A national high school in Tacloban City, a school of nearly 2,000 students, 2 ninth graders walked in and opened fire. Witnesses said one of them started shooting through a classroom window before walking inside. They fired roughly 40 rounds, and when it was over, 3 students were dead and around 20 more were injured. The death toll could have been far worse if not for the police who reached the school in about 2 minutes. As one of the boys tried to run, students, teachers, and parents tackled him and held him down.
Bravo
the other
for them.
fled, but later turned himself in due to pressure from his neighbors. Now, both shooters are alive and in custody, but here's the problem.
Yes.
Because they're only 14 and 15, they're treated as juveniles, which means that the case against them plays out mostly in private, and the 14-year-old cannot even be put on trial. So while there's been plenty of public investigation into how this thing happened, the one thing we may never fully get is a clear answer from the shooters themselves on why they did it.
Exactly. That's what I would like to know. Why? What was the purpose of doing this? We hear bullying and all that, but you understand, innocent lives were taken for what? Because you got bullied? This is not acceptable behavior. And if you guys, also, if you see in my description, I'm not trying to be triggering to anybody. And if anybody younger or whatever, if you don't know, there's a crisis hotline that's also in my description. So if anybody's dealing with stuff or you feel like you don't got nobody to talk to, there's a crisis hotline and it's free. There's also a Philippine number. Because again, I want everybody to feel safe. And again, I know what we deal with here in America and we've got our own challenges, but the Philippines, I'm sorry you have to experience this. I really, truly am. No child should have to worry about going to school. And now you have metal detectors and I know how the government does. They're going to step in and they're going to want to take more and more. And next thing you know, you're under a surveillance state. And in America, we have, like I said, certain things and guidelines. And like I said, it always works perfectly, but we have more protections. In the Philippines, sad to say, your government's they implemented martial law before. This can go very, very bad. And if the Filipino people are willing to put up with this, I'm just like, wake up, and definitely protect your children.
At first, police said it looked like a grudge over bullying. Both boys had reportedly been bullied for years, so it could have been a targeted attack. But investigators and even the education secretary later walked that back, saying that the bullying claim was unverified and that the 3 students who died may not even have been the intended targets. Then a Senate investigation pointed somewhere else entirely, which I'll get into later. For now, here's what we do know, and there are 2 factors that could explain how this thing ever happened. First, the physical firewall was breached. The 14-year-old used a 9mm Glock pistol that belonged to his aunt, a police officer. Now, police rules say an officer...
Okay, now pay close attention to this. This is why he started the video out with these security. Remember the restrictions that they have? Pay very close attention to this part.
A service weapon has to be kept in a proper safety vault. But according to her own testimony to the Senate, hers wasn't. She kept it in a gun box tucked inside a plastic locker in her house. And on the day of the shooting, the 14-year-old broke in through a window, forced open that locker, and took the pistol. She never thought to lock it in a real vault because she lived alone and because it never crossed her mind that her nephew was capable of doing something like this. In fact, he had told her that he wanted to be a police officer someday, just like her. She'd even take him to a firing range once because of it. After the shooting, she was relieved from duty and criminally charged. The 15-year-old's gun tells even a messier story. It was a .38 revolver and its serial number traced back to a private security agency in Cebu City, about 100 miles away.
Yeah, now notice the serial number. Now we know there's ghost guns there, but pay close attention to this. Cebu City, 100 miles away. Now how in the crap did a kid get a weapon 100 miles away? And we're gonna find out. And this is where it gets very interesting. Listen about that serial number.
Away from the crime scene, on another island. So how did that gun travel 100 miles to a different island and end up with a 15-year-old? that's still being investigated, but one confirmed link is this. Turns out the boy's grandfather used to work as a security guard for that very agency. And here's where it gets strange. When police ran the serial number, they found the second nearly identical revolver carrying the exact same serial number still assigned to a guard in another province. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I find that very odd. How in the world do you have two same serial numbers on weapons? I don't know about you guys, but yeah, I find that very disturbing. And again, this said this is still under an investigation, so I'm not trying to spread any fake information. I haven't been able to confirm this. But if this did happen, yeah, Philippines, these security teams have bigger issues if this is going on. Is that a ghost gun? Why would we have that makes no sense.
Why did a former guard still have a firearm registered to the agency when a guard's gun is supposed to be returned when he leaves, right?
Right.
And why is there a second identical gun with the same serial number floating around in a different province? Either way, the trail leads straight back to the private security industry. And the agency now faces losing its license to operate for failing to report that one of its firearms had gone missing in the first place. So this is the first breach, the physical firewall at the institutional level. The guns used in the shooting weren't bought illegally from some stranger. They came from family members inside the police force and the private security industry, the exact people who should have been trained on the basics of how to properly store a gun. Now you understand why I had to break down the private security industry earlier, right? The low pay, the lack of any real training, guns that aren't even properly tracked or collected.
Yeah, makes sense, right? You're not getting paid anything to even do this job. Your requirements and your bar is set so low, right? And now you got a woman, which I kind of get it. She's responsible for what her child did. And now her family's going to pay for this, right? She's probably going to go to prison. And we've actually had situations. There was I'm trying to remember that one kid. He went into a school. His mom worked at the school, somehow buzzed him in. And yeah, he went off. It was like an elementary. I don't know if any Americans, you might remember that story. I want to say it probably happened, 6 years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago. It was all over the news. But yeah, there was a young man that kind of did the same thing. And his parents did get charged. Because again, yeah, you put your weapon in a box. You're supposed to keep it secure from your kids. And this is the type of stuff that can happen. And I do agree, even in the United States, if a child under the age of 18, right, sits here and does a crime like this, yes, I agree. Not only does that child get charged, I feel like the parents also need to be charged along with them for being irresponsible. There's proper gun ownership. And there's a way that we treat weapons, right? Never point a weapon at anything you don't intend to shoot, right? Keep your finger straight and off the trigger. I don't know if, like in America too, normally people have to go through gun classes, right? Know the laws and, this gun safety.
An entire industry is built on cheap, disposable, undertrained labor. You could argue it was only a matter of time for this kind of tragedy. But that's only half the equation, and that brings us to the second firewall. The one that was supposed to catch these two shooters long before they ever get their hands on a weapon. Culture. In the Philippines, there's a very well-known cultural concept called hiya. It roughly means shame or the deep fear of embarrassment. A Filipino criminologist named Raymond Narag argues that hiya works as a brake on this kind of violence. Because in the Philippines, what you do doesn't just reflect on you. It reflects on your entire family community. Tied to that is how tight-knit Filipino families and communities tend to be. Narag's point is that when someone is struggling, spiraling, becoming dangerous, the people around them usually notice and pull them back in before it gets to that stage. He contrasts it with the US, where a troubled person can isolate themselves completely and nobody intervenes. At a deeper level though, if you extrapolate this concept of hiya out, it ultimately comes down to the collectivist nature of Filipino society. You always belong to something before you belong to yourself. Your family, your relatives, your local neighborhood, your community.
And this is one thing for my Filipino friends. I even noticed this within the Latino, Hispanic community as well. This closeness with family and these bonds. And I'm not going to say, Caucasian or other Americans don't have close relationships, but there's a difference. I see it myself. Filipino community, Hispanic community, yeah, they're about families, right? And they do a lot of get-togethers, and it's a very close-knit group. And I respect that. I admire that. It's old-fashioned values to many of us, because in America, yeah, most people, we stay in our homes. If you live in a gated community, you don't really want to pay attention to the outside world. You go out and you come back in. We don't really care too much about our neighbors. Again, I live out in the country, so yeah, we all help each other and watch out for each other's homes. But again, people who live in the city, yeah, everybody's all about themselves. People ain't concerned or doing. So this is kind of going back, but these are the types of values that in America, I personally, I wish we had more of this.
Community. It's a society where it's genuinely hard to become an isolated, invisible individual. Yeah. And I mean that physically as well. Yeah. The poorer you are, the more true this gets.
Okay. Now, again, there's good and bad to both this. So I kind of get this. If you're in poverty and then they say you don't get a room to yourself, I got to stay in one room. Yeah. Especially as a teenager. Yeah. So again, there's a give and take. So for my American friends, especially even younger people, if you happen to watch this, be very thankful for certain things that you might have that other people in other countries don't have the luxuries of.
Crammed household. You almost certainly share a room, sometimes even a bed, with your siblings. And a 14-year-old came from exactly that kind of a household. His family was on government welfare. His parents out of work. So you don't get the kind of privacy, self-contained bedroom a suburban American teenager takes for granted. Whether you like it or not, you're physically surrounded by people all the time, and that constant proximity was supposed to be the second firewall. But here's what changed: the smartphone. For example, if you had to share one desktop computer with all your siblings, it's kind of hard to go looking up stuff online without anyone noticing. But with a smartphone, an introverted Filipino kid can completely disappear into his own world while he's physically surrounded by family and relatives. And that's exactly what investigators found when they looked into the 14-year-old, who, by the way, did most of the shooting himself. According to a Senate investigation, the 14-year-old had...
And this is where it gets dark. This is what I was warning you guys earlier. And we got cybersecurity investigators and other people that have looked into this. And like I said, there's tons of videos online, and they talk about this group, this 764. So if you got any children or anything, definitely look at their social medias and make sure. And it's not always called 764, but this is a very large group of people. A lot of them are being arrested and investigated by it's a terrorist group. And what they do is they're predators, and they prey on vulnerable people, especially younger people.
Been pulled into an online extremist network called 764. It's a nihilistic online group founded by an American teenager in Texas that the FBI now calls a national security threat. Its whole method is to hunt for exactly the kind of kid we've been describing: lonely, withdrawn, not feeling like he belongs anywhere in real life. They find victims inside chat apps like Discord and popular video games like Minecraft and Gorebox, which the 14-year-old played heavily. Gorebox has since been banned in the Philippines after the shooting. The point is, this network offered him the belonging he was missing and then slowly pulled him toward darker and darker things: self-harm, blackmail, hurting others, violence. And investigators found that after the shooting, an account believed to belong to an adult groomer left a message on the boy's page, telling him to delete his app so that there would be no evidence. And sure enough, when investigators went looking, that account was already gone. Yeah. So what's clear now is that even a cultural firewall this strong, the shame, the families, the whole community watching, can no longer fully protect the Filipino kid from radicalized by an online hate group half a world away. The bottom line is, it's hard to say if this was truly a random mass shooting or targeted violence that caught bystanders in the crossfire. It could very well have been the bullying, or it could have been the copycat of the American school shootings inspired by Columbine, judging by the t-shirt that the 14-year-old was wearing.
Yeah.
That being said, there is now a preponderance of evidence pointing to how well this was planned. Investigators...
See, this is this type of stuff. This wasn't just some random act. So when you sit here and you look into these reports and stuff, yeah, a month. Planned for a month. Now, as you see in these tight communities in the Philippines, you're telling me nobody noticed this? Noticed any of this behavior? Him sitting here pulling away, you know, from his family, being on his phone. See, this is the stuff, I can see this in America. But I'm trying to say, Filipinos, there's a reason why we love that country, right? And the people of that country. It's your innocence. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic or naive or putting people down, but America, we know we got a large influence around the world. But hopefully, everybody's going to be affected in one way or the other. And I just pray that the Philippines, that this isn't going to be a continuing trend. And you guys got to keep living through this and the loss. So hopefully, like I said, that the dam hasn't broken and you guys can somewhat try, and I'm not always going to say you can stop this by more laws. The way I believe positive change starts is it starts with us sharing information, right? And it starts with us in your house. I can't tell people what to do in your home. I would never do that. But the thing is, yeah, listen, talk to your kids. See what your kids are doing. Get off the freaking computer and get offline and be involved in your families. Or you are going to end up becoming like the United States where people get a lot more distant. And that's one thing that Filipinos should always cherish. Cherish your family. Cherish those tight-knit communities. I know it could probably be a lot of rumors and people talking and be a pain in the butt. But also, there's a lot of good and positivity that comes out of it as well. And this video is almost over, so I'm going to let it keep playing. And again, I keep cutting in because I don't want to get a copyright.
Found that had been preparing this for over a month, and they had even studied the relevant juvenile law. Under the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act, a child over 15, but under 18, can be charged and held criminally liable, but he doesn't go to an adult prison. He goes to a youth facility instead. The 14-year-old cannot even be charged with anything. So whether or not he was influenced or coerced by 764, the 14-year-old knew for sure that the worst he would face is a rehab program. So
then that's not okay. He knew exactly what he was doing. He should have to take full responsibility and accountability. But again, Filipino culture might be different than here in American culture. And not all Americans feel the way I do. But if that was my child, he would take full accountability for what he did. And in America, I would ask for the death penalty.
So what does this mean going forward now that we know these two firewalls, the physical and the cultural, might not be enough to stop the next one? More guards. That's what the Department of Education is saying. They admitted there are only around 2,000 security guards for 48,000 public schools in the country. That leaves nearly 7 out of 10 public schools without dedicated security personnel. In fact, there was a guard at San Jose National High School on the day of the shooting, and that was 1 for 2,000 students. That sounds like a massive market gap just waiting to be filled by the security agencies, which might be great for the future of the industry.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe more hiring. But here's a real question. Who pays for it? Exactly. Because remember, these are private guards funded by private clients like malls and banks. A public school isn't a revenue-generating business. So the education secretary is now asking the government for money to hire more. It's just a request. So let's see what actually comes of it. But bear in mind, this is the same government that cannot even properly fund its own national police force. The same PNP that leans on the entire private security industry to be its eyes and ears for free. This is the first problem. funding allocation for more private guards at public schools. For the sake of argument, let's say the private security industry does find a way to put more guards in schools. Then you run into the second problem, the one we already talked about. These are middle-aged, out of shape, minimum wage workers with almost no real training on how to store guns away, let alone properly use one in the first place. That might be enough for everyday deterrence, scaring of a snatcher or a shoplifter. But do you really think a guard like that can stop intentional shooters who planned for months?
Exactly. And even in America, we still struggle with this active shooter. We've had many of them, but now we've got reaction teams and somewhat of a better game plan. But the whole idea is this should never happen, ever. And the thing is, we're always playing deterrence. The thing is, let's start playing defensive instead of offensive, right? We always got to fix this after the fact. Why can't we prevent this stuff? And hopefully this video and even my little small YouTube channel can be a little bit of that positive change. Again, just telling people, monitor and talk to your kids. I know sometimes it's tough and they can get under our skin, but, you know, I honestly don't want this to happen anymore in America, in the Philippines, anywhere. But again, this was just eye-opening to me that this even happened in the Philippines. And then now learning more. And again, I'm not trying to get involved in your politics or all that. I'm just giving you an outside perspective. And I know most Filipinos are probably like how most Americans are. We don't care what other foreigners think or say about our country. I totally can respect that, and I totally get that. But I'm just saying this out of empathy. Because I know the tragedy and the hurt and the loss and how this can affect communities. Even in my community, we've had some situations, thank God, nothing like a random school shooting. But we've had some situations that's happened, and it does. It affects a community. And some of these communities, it can affect for a lifetime. And especially even the children that have to, it might be the survivors of this, they now have to live a survivor guilt. You understand, mentally, they're going to have to get therapy. And I don't even know if the Philippines is going to be able to provide all that for these children. This is our future and our youth. And I hope people do, I don't want to be one of these people like our government does. It's for the kids. We got to take the guns because it's not the guns that's doing any of this stuff. At the end of the day, it's people and mindsets that do evil and bad things. So on that note, we're almost to the end and we'll finish up. And then I'll play one more song I created with AI in remembrance to the families and those affected in Tacloban.
Entire 500,000 persons security industry in the Philippines is built on one idea: deterrence. And that idea might fall apart the moment a threat like the one we just saw emerges. Maybe the real lesson here is that these two firewalls shouldn't be dismissed as outdated. They just need an upgrade.
Yes.
The private security industry will only keep growing, and the unique Filipino culture is still there. Both just need to be strengthened to face the threats of the future. Maybe it means finally settling the current debate over whether the age of criminal responsibility, which is currently 15, should be lowered. And maybe most of all, it's about those same parents, relatives, and neighbors giving those lonely, withdrawn kids enough attention and belonging at home, they never go looking for it in the wrong places online. If those things happen, then honestly, it's hard to see the Philippines turning into America. If the security industry, the government, the schools, and the parents can all play their part, the same way those teachers, parents, and students did when they tackled and held down an armed shooter, then maybe a tragedy that claimed the lives of 3 innocent children can stay the rare exception and never becomes the new normal.
Amen.
If you found this video insightful and feel better informed as a result, make sure to subscribe to Asian Boss, hit that notification bell, and share this video with your family and friends. Our mission is to be your authentic go-to source for Asia-related insights across business, tech, and culture, and we'll continue to bring you the most in-depth, objective reporting straight from the ground. We're not professional journalists, okay? All we do is ask questions to try to get to the bottom of an issue and do a shit ton of research to back up our findings. What we would love to do is show you how we discover and gather insights by bringing on our viewers with local knowledge, interviewing them live, and fact-checking in real time. That's why we do our live stream sessions, to invite our viewers and ask them for their local insights. If you're interested in participating and having your voice heard, just fill out the form in the description, submit a short video intro of yourself, and tell us what kind of insights you can share from the Philippines that the Western mainstream media doesn't cover. I'll personally review everything and get in touch to see if you can come on a future live stream session. Think of it like letting the audience see how we do our street interviews, but in real time with no edits. Then we'll follow those insights into our future Philippines-related episodes. If you think that sounds pretty cool, I totally agree.
I do too. I think that's really cool. I like that little model that he's creating there. Let's see if this will come back to. All right. So yeah, I definitely want to give credit out to the Asian Boss YouTube channel. Again, if you guys can, definitely go over and like and subscribe. And actually, once the video ends, I'm going to put his link down in the description of the video. And I found this very insightful and very helpful. And yeah, I learned a lot of stuff that I honestly didn't know. So I definitely thank him for this video. And look at that. Yeah, look at that, 4.14 million subscribers. That's awesome. Keep up the great work there, Asian Boss. We truly appreciate you sharing your information. And I hopefully can, like I said, get this out to more people as well. So on that note, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me and spending your time with me. And on that note, I just want to say I'll see you guys more than likely this weekend. And might do a little, like I said, probably do a little karaoke. And I might have a little tech stuff coming up because I still got some hours and my StreamYard and stuff don't reset till the 7th. And I got some other platforms that I want to try out, and I still got plenty of hours there. So on that note, I want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, Philippines. It's about, what, 4 in the afternoon for you guys. So hopefully you guys are enjoying your dinner and enjoying your time with your family. And I just want to say, oorah, semper fi, and I love you guys. And my dedication again to the families and those affected in Tacloban. And I like to say a little prayer on the way out. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this time and for being able to share this information with fellow people that might be interested in this type of topic. And I know you will always keep your loving hand upon myself and others. And always keep our children in your heart. And I know children, you love children. And that you will give us the guidance as well as the ability to have conversations and empathy for others in these types of losses. And that we're not all as divided as we think. If we're in America, if we're in the Philippines, if we're in Russia or any other country, that we all realize we're still human beings and we're all children of God. And we are created in your image. And I thank you for your grace and your loving salvation in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right. You guys take care, and I'll leave you this song on the way out. And we're in stereo mode. Take care, everybody. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.
In Tacloban, we bow our heads for little shoes, for empty desks. So many names too young to hold, so much light we'll never know. A mother's hand still shakes in prayer. A father's silence fills the air. The halls remember tiny steps and all the love the morning kept.
We bring the tears, we bring the ache, we bring the hearts that break and break.
Hold them close in mercy's arms. Keep the children safe where you are. Hold our children, Lord. Hold them evermore. We will not forget. We will honor more. Tacloban, hear our cry. Tacloban, hear our cry. With every broken heart, you are not alone tonight.
To every family, we say your name with trembling love and sacred pain. The whole community stands near to carry grief and wipe each tear. We'll light a candle, soft and small, for every child who should still call, for every dream cut down too soon. We sing their memory to you. We bring the tears, we bring the ache, we bring the hearts that break and break. Hold them close in mercy's arms. Keep the children safe where you are. Hold our children, Lord. Hold them evermore. We will not forget. We will honor more. Tacloban, hear our cry. Tacloban, hear our cry. With every broken heart, you are not alone tonight. When words are dust and questions rise, be near the ones who cannot light. Let peace come down like healing rain, and let their names still sing through pain. We lift up love, we lift up light for every mother, every father tonight. Hold our children,
our children, Lord. Hold them evermore in your arms of peace. Let them shine forevermore.
Sa Tacloban, may mga pangalan di na namin maririnig. Mga bata, alaala na maagang lumisan sa dilim.
Munting kamay, munting tawa, naiwan sa aming puso. Sa bawat luha ng magulang, may dasal na di nauubos.
Panginoon, dinggin mo kami sa katahimikan ng gabi. Buhatin mo ang mga sugat ng pamilyang sugatan pa rin.
Pahinga ng mga bata, sa piling mo ligtas na.
Pahinga ng mga bata, sa walang hanggan mong bilang.
Mga pangalan iyong mahal,
Dala namin sa dasal. Pahinga na mga bata, hindi kayo mawawala.
sa bawat upuan bakante, may kwentong di natapos.
Sa bawat larawang hawak, may pangalang di nalulugod. Komunidad, magkapit-bisig sa gitna ng pagdadalamhati. Itayo nating muli ang pag-ibig na nawa sa mawawala. Kung may bitak ang aming mundo, ikaw ang hahawak sa gitna. Kung may luha sa bawat tahanan, ikaw ang aaliw sa lahat. At sa araw ng pagbangon, iyong ilaw ang tatanglaw hanggang sa muling magkita sa dulo ng awa mo, Ama. Pahinga ng mga tata sa piling mo, ligtas na. Pahinga ng mga bata sa walang hanggan mong dila. Mga pangalan iyong mahal, dala namin sa dasal. Pahinga na mga bata, hindi kayo mawawala. Pahinga na mga bata sa puso namin naglulusan. Pahinga na mga bata, mahal kayo sa Tacloban, may mga pangalan di na namin maririnig. Mga batang alaala na maagang lumisan sa dilim. Munting kamay, munting tawa, naiwan sa aming puso sa bawat luha ng magulang. May dasal na di nauubos, Panginoon. Dinggin mo kami sa katahimikan ng gabi. Buhatin mo ang mga sugat ng pamilyang sugatan pa rin. Pahinga na mga bata, sa piling mo ligtas na. Pahinga na mga bata, sa walang hanggan mong dila. Mga pangalan iyong mahal, dala namin sa dasal. Pahinga na mga bata, hindi kayo mawawala. ang bakante, may kwentong di natapos sa bawat larawang hawak. May pangalang di nalulugot, komunidad magkapit-bisig sa gitna ng pagdadalamhati. Itayo nating